Shocking revelation. A billionaire's unexpected embrace transforms a poor girl's life forever. Sarah sat at her usual table in the local library, her fingers cramping from the notes she had written over and over again. The quiet hum of pages flipping filled the air, but her mind was a cacophony of self-doubt and determination. She watched the wealthier students filter in and out, their laughter ringing like glass shattering against her resolve. They called her the poor girl, their whispers laced with dismissive tones that stung deeply. Each sneer felt like a weight added to her already battered spirit. This relentless judgment was a constant background noise, pushing at her, trying to drag her down. Despite the heaviness in her chest, the flame of ambition burned bright. She dreamed of becoming a scientist, breaking barriers in a field that seemed so far from her reality. Working 2 jobs to support her family only heightened the pressure. Serving tables at the diner by day and stocking grocery shelves by night left little room for study. Each shift was a test of endurance, stretching her, pulling her thin. Amidst her struggle, Sarah stumbled upon an older community garden project during one of her late-night study sessions. Lost in thought, she stared at the overgrown weeds swallowing the last remains of vibrant produce. Something sparked within her. She had a vision. This garden could be a sanctuary for her town, a place where kids could learn about science while growing something tangible. A refuge where neighbors could gather and connect, breaking down barriers that wealth had spent a lifetime erecting. Yet, the daunting task felt insurmountable. Before she could wrestle with the fear of failure, her phone buzzed, jolting her from her reverie. It was a notification about James Sinclair's unexpected return to town. The billionaire, a figure painted in tales of both admiration and contempt, had been entangled in Sarah's dreams and nightmares for years. His mere presence in these halls during high school felt like a distant memory, one intertwined with humiliating moments when wealth had laid bare the stark divisions between them. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As she stared at the overgrown garden, doubt gnawed at her. The weight of expectations and ridicule threatened to swallow her whole. Could she truly revive this garden? Could she step outside the shadows of her past and craft something lasting? Then, as if drawn by an invisible tether, James appeared, standing before her with an intensity that both frightened and excited her. "Hi, I heard about your idea for the garden," he said, his voice low and warm. She had expected disdain, an echo of the judgment she was used to, but there he was, intrigued. Her heart raced. What did he really want? The very foundation of her dreams felt shaky. With each passing moment, the stakes grew higher. This was a man who carried both privilege and pain, and she was left wondering, could their worlds truly blend? Or was it just another illusion ready to shatter? The bitterness of her peers' whispers floating about her and James, reeking of jealousy, hovered around them ominously. What history had he built with them? What sins from the past awaited to unravel their fragile collaboration? As the questions stacked up, so did the pressure. Sarah faced a decision that could lead her down a path of either fulfillment or despair. She had dreamed of breaking free but never envisioned a possibility held delicately in someone else's hands. Suddenly, with her entire future hanging in the balance, the pull of acceptance clashed violently with her ingrained sense of self-worth, a battle that would soon define them both. And in that moment of overwhelming conflict, she realized she stood at the edge of 2 worlds. Each breath she took tinged with uncertainty. Sarah's mind raced as she searched for the right words. The familiar burning in her chest intensified, an urgent reminder of her aspirations and the barriers she had fought to overcome. She had always harbored dreams of study and exploration, but standing before James twisted her resolve. His curiosity about her garden project was a glimmer of hope, yet the ghosts of their past stripped away any sense of comfort. "What do you mean you heard about it?" she managed to say, her voice steady despite the chaos within. The library, with its comforting books and silent corners, felt suddenly hollow, a world apart from the tension of their encounter. I have colleagues who work in sustainable practices. I think the community garden could be a great project, and I'd be willing to help, James offered, a genuine gleam in his eyes. She wasn't prepared for the warmth behind his words. It melted the icy facade she had built around her heart. Help. What did that look like? His world was filled with resources, financial backing, connection to experts, a myriad of opportunities that danced just outside of her reach. But did that mean she could rely on him? Was she ready to allow someone with his wealth to play a part in her dreams? You're just looking for a good press story, she challenged, hoping to draw back the warmth. The sting of skepticism lingered on her tongue, as if she feared his help would come with strings attached. His expression shifted. A flicker of surprise crossed his features. You think so little of me? I know how it feels to be judged. I've been in your shoes in my own way. Her heart softened momentarily, striking a conflict within her. To believe him might open new doors, but embracing that possibility required vulnerability she wasn't certain she could afford. For years, life had taught her to avoid falling prey to false kindness. Yet a part of her craved the chance to escape the weight of judgment she felt from peers and society. We could work together. I have the resources, and you have the passion. He prompted again, a steadying undertone in his voice. It felt like an invitation to redefine her path, one cautiously carried on a whisper of hope. Sarah weighed the possibilities, envisioning the vibrant flowers sprouting from the earth as learning spaces for kids, their laughter mingling with the joy of learning. But that vision felt compromised with James' South shadow looming so close. What if this collaboration changed her? What parts of herself would she have to surrender to this wealthy alliance? Her thoughts spiraled, a vortex of ambition and insecurity grappling for dominance. What do you want from me? She finally asked, needing clarity. If they were to forge this path together, she needed to peel back the facade and see what was at stake. That he paused, the intensity in his eyes grounding her. I want the same thing you do to make a difference. And for what it's worth, I don't believe money defines a person. If you'd let me in, we might just create something that alters the very fabric of our community. His sincerity jarred her, but also offered a strange comfort. It was a different invitation, one devoid of the taint of charity. Rather, it was a call for partnership. Yet, the steps ahead shimmered with a wretched threat. What if she faltered under this newfound pressure? Breathless and uncertain, Sarah felt her walls beginning to crack. The thrill of potential collided violently with the fear of hurt and betrayal, leaving her contemplating her next move. Could she allow James into this space, or would it drown her ambitions in the currents of his well-meaning influence? With one decision looming over her, she realized the next moment could change everything. Decisions formed like vines, winding around her heart. Did she accept this chance at collaboration, or did she let doubt dictate her fate? And then, just as the silence settled, her phone buzzed again. Another message arrived, this one unexpectedly demanding her immediate attention. It delivered a new reality, and with it, the chance to determine what it meant. To forge her own future. Sarah's fingers trembled as she glanced down at her phone, the sudden shrill alert pulling her from the whirlwind of emotions swirling in her mind. The message, simple yet compelling, read, "You've been chosen for the Urban Sustainability Grant. Interview details attached." The words hit her like a jolt of adrenaline, and she quickly scanned the details. The grant was competitive and presented an extraordinary opportunity to launch her community garden project with professional backing, but it also intensified her internal conflict regarding James's proposal. Suddenly, she found herself standing at the intersection of possibility and apprehension. Sarah? James's voice pulled her back into the moment. The sincerity in his tone felt both grounding and disarming. What just happened? You look like you've seen a ghost. She inhaled deeply, forcing her heart to settle as she searched for the right words. I just got a message, she said, her voice steadier than she felt. I've been chosen for an interview for a grant, a real shot to bring this garden project to life. Excitement sparked in James's eyes, igniting a flicker of hope within her. "That's amazing. This could change everything for you." His enthusiasm was infectious, yet the presence of his support also made her flinch inwardly. "It's a big opportunity," she replied, hesitating to share her rising anxiety. "But I'm not sure I want to mix it with this." She motioned with her hand between them, the weight of possibility and doubt settling heavily on her shoulders. "Why not? With my resources and your vision, we could make a real impact." His eyes challenged her, daring her to confront her murky fears about collaboration. With each passing moment, her thoughts clashed violently within her. The grant itself meant freedom, validation, and the chance to prove herself. But partnering with James? That brought about the specter of dependency. Would she be sacrificing her independence? "Are you sure it's not just another way for me to end up relying on your connections? I've built my life around doing things on my own." The weight of her past experiences pressed tightly against her as she spoke, her chest aching under the memories of relying on others only to face disappointments. "You don't have to relinquish control, Sarah. This is about collaboration, not submission. I can help you take your vision to heights you never imagined." His steady gaze softened, imbued with intent. "What is it you truly want?" The simplicity of the question struck her hard. What did she want? Fragments of the larger dream fluttered through her mind. Cultivating a space for kids, integrating sustainable practices, and fostering growth both literally and metaphorically. Yet, it was tied irrevocably to her fears of becoming compromised, of becoming just another narrative in someone else's story. "What if I fail?" she whispered, her mind racing toward the potential for embarrassment and shame. "What if I can't deliver?" "Then we regroup and learn. Sometimes failure is the most valuable teacher." He straightened, the confidence in his voice reverberating through her uncertainty. "But you won't know if you don't try. This is your moment to decide what type of legacy you want to build." The weight of his words settled in, igniting a shift in her. It sparked a new resolve, a flicker of bravery in a normally complacent heart. Maybe this was the challenge she needed to push her forward, to relinquish doubts that had long shackled her. As the tentative excitement grew, so did the fear, and Sarah grappled with both emotions swirling together. Centering herself, she realized this was not just about the garden project. This was about her evolution in a world that seemed increasingly to demand allies and collaboration. Taking a deep breath, she considered that this moment could redefine her relationship with both herself and James. Could embracing vulnerability open doors she had never considered? Feeling a newfound sense of agency, she opened her message again and began preparing for the interview. But a question lingered in her mind, one that transformed the weight of the moment. What would she be willing to risk to secure her future? The answer hovered just out of reach, but she felt it as a pulse of urgency demanding attention. In that moment of anticipation, her phone buzzed again. This time with a reminder of the interview. The stakes had risen, and it was time to confront what lay on the other side of her self-imposed limitations. Could she truly embrace this turning point? Or would the fear of vulnerability draw her back into the shadows? The morning of the interview arrived, and anxiety gripped Sarah with unexpected intensity. She stood in her cramped apartment, looking at her reflection in the dusty mirror. The faint shadows under her eyes told a story of sleepless nights filled with uncertainty. Her palms, slick with sweat, betrayed the confidence she struggled to summon. Her clothing choice weighed heavily on her mind. Business casual felt like a costume, an armor she rarely donned. Yet it was not really the clothes that mattered. It was the fear of facing a panel of strangers looking for holes in her vision. What if they saw her as another dreamer, unable to back her ideas with real-world applications? The clock ticked loudly, filling the small space with sound that echoed her desperation. She closed her eyes, allowing herself to breathe deeply, to center within the chaotic whirlwind of self-doubt. She couldn't afford to neglect what she had learned. Self-belief had to be the bedrock upon which she would build her case. "Your idea is worthwhile, Sarah," she murmured to herself, bracing for the onslaught of scrutiny. She envisioned kids laughing under leafy canopies, earth rich with possibilities. That was her mission: to inspire, to grow, to connect. As she stepped out into the crisp morning air, she clutched her notes tightly. Each word on those pages carried the weight of her heart, and the knowledge that failure was not an endpoint, but a teacher. The streets buzzed with the energy of countless others pursuing their ambitions. Novelty washed over her as she realized she was not alone in this fight for a future with purpose. Arriving at the venue, the building loomed large and somehow imposing. The industrial architecture felt intimidating, the stark lines a stark departure from her garden vision. Each step toward the entrance weighed on her, but with every small victory presenting her name at the registration desk. Receiving her interview badge, she found pockets of strength she didn't know she possessed. Inside the grand conference room, her heart raced. The panel's gaze was penetrating. A diverse group of faces, each hardened by experience and knowledge, silently communicated a challenge. She could feel their doubt like a palpable force. Yet, just as she was about to become overwhelmed by their scrutiny, James's voice echoed in her head. "This is your moment." Then it hit her: the interview was not merely a test of her abilities, but an opportunity to share a vision for a better tomorrow. Don't wait for validation from others. Create it yourself, she reminded herself. As she began speaking, her voice found strength in the certainty of her passion. Describing her project, every word felt like a brick in the foundation of her future. She spoke of community engagement, sustainability, and growth metaphorically and literally. The energy in her heart surged, propelling her forward, framing her fledgling vision with a sense of dignity. Yet as she reached the conclusion, a panelist raised a brow, skepticism etched across her features. How can you ensure your project sustains itself economically? What guarantees do you have? An unsettling wave struck Sarah, but instead of stumbling, she recalled the fears that had once constricted her. She was ready for this. By fostering local partnerships and engagement, I'll weave a network that doesn't depend on single contributors, but on community support. She leaned forward, her passion igniting the room. This isn't merely about a garden. It's about cultivating relationships that nurture not just plants, but people. For the first time, she noticed nods around the table. The tension in the room began to shift, and with it, a sense of connection blossomed. She could see their defenses lowering, their curiosity peaking. Adrenaline surged through her, revitalizing her spirit. This was the conversation she had longed for. As questions rolled in, her confidence burgeoned. She navigated each inquiry with determination, feeling her unease transform into a fierce sense of purpose. She could do this. She was doing it. But as the interview drew to a close, a shadow of uncertainty skimmed her resolve. Regardless of the results, she understood that she was forging a new version of herself in real time. Yet, a disquieting thought crept in, whispering fears of future setbacks and disappointments if the outcome didn't align with her hopes. The panel thanked her for her time, and as she walked out, exhilaration mixed with the nagging question that followed her like a shadow. What if this was the first step to something much larger than she could ever imagine? The moment she exited the building, her phone chimed again with a message that made her stomach drop. Urgent matter to discuss regarding the grant. The stakes had risen, and uncertainty coiled tighter. Was this communication a setback or a secret opportunity waiting to unfold? The message hung in the air like an ominous cloud. Sarah gripped her phone, her heart thumping erratically. Urgent matter regarding the grant. What could this mean? Did something go wrong? Doubts spiraled through her mind, but she fought to shake them off. This could also be an unexpected opportunity, a chance to elevate her vision closer to reality. As she walked down the street, her pace quickened in tune with her racing thoughts. Observations around her faded into the background. Instead, she was consumed by scenarios playing in her mind. What if this billionaire had seen potential in her proposal? What if she was being offered more than just funding? What if they wanted to partner with her? Her fingers danced nervously across the screen as she typed a quick response, asking for clarification on the meeting. She hit send and took a deep breath, realizing that silence loomed next. It was the same silence that had accompanied her during moments of dread, but now it felt different. It was pregnant with possibilities. Back in her apartment, Sarah paced the small space, brimming with anticipation. Every moment felt elongated, stretching time beyond recognition. The implications of that singular message thrust her into a whirlwind of reflection. Was she truly ready? This was not just about her garden. It was about her growth, her evolution from timid dreamer to bold innovator. The weight of her past loomed over her, where she had often hesitated. No more. She envisioned herself standing tall, embodying confidence despite her humble beginnings. Yet, the specter of her inexperience haunted her. Could she handle this billionaire's approach? What if their vision clashed dramatically with hers? Navigating this new terrain seemed daunting. Suddenly, her phone buzzed, jerking her from her reverie. It was a response. As she read it, her anxiety deepened. "Let us meet in an hour. I believe we can align our visions for the grant." Align our visions, the phrase struck her like a bolt of lightning. It wasn't just a financial transaction. This was a convergence of ambitions, a coalescing of paths that could potentially reshape her future. The prospect of aligning her vision with someone so accomplished invoked a mix of excitement and dread. What if she stumbled in articulating her dreams? Taking a moment to collect her thoughts, she grabbed her notebook, flipping through the pages filled with ideas and sketches. She paused at a drawing of a thriving community space, filled with children and families enjoying nature's bounty. She needed to remember that this vision wasn't merely business. It was personal and driven by genuine concern for the environment and the lives she intended to touch. An hour later, she stood outside the sleek, modern office building, the unmistakable embodiment of wealth and power. Sarah's heart raced as she walked through its polished halls, a stark contrast to the earthy textures she loved. Yet this was part of her journey now. An inner voice reassured her. The seeds of her potential were germinating. As she approached the conference room, doubts crept in. What if she was out of her league? Yet, every successful person she admired had once faced their own thresholds of fear. It was time to confront this. The door opened, and she stepped inside. A distinguished man with a gaze that spoke of incisive judgment rose to greet her, a wealthy philanthropist known for his impactful initiatives. As they exchanged pleasantries, Sarah felt a mix of vulnerability and determination. This was her moment to shine, to articulate her vision with clarity and passion. But as he began to speak about his expectations, a sudden realization hit her. This meeting would be about far more than just funding. It would challenge her to defend her values, her methods, and her aspirations in a world about which she had only daydreamed until now. Was she ready to navigate this intricate dance? As he laid out his vision, she felt the heat rise in her chest. She hadn't just come to share her ideas. She had come to protect her dreams, to negotiate the future of her purpose. She glanced at her notes, poised to respond, her pulse quickening. The entrepreneur's next question practically cut through her thoughts, sharp and incisive. What will it take for you to be successful in this venture? In that moment, all her plans, all her developed ideas hung in the balance. The stakes had never felt higher. Sarah inhaled deeply, preparing to reveal her explosive potential. Could she deliver the answer that would not only convince him but also reaffirm her commitment to her mission? The moment stretched on like a taut string, ready to snap. She was on the brink of a critical choice. The outcome of this meeting could change everything. But were the heights of success worth the risk of deviation from her vision? The silence in the room seemed to expand, filling every crevice until it felt almost suffocating. Sarah could hear her heartbeat, a rhythmic reminder of the magnitude of this moment. The billionaire's question hung in the air, heavy with implications. It wasn't merely about funding. It was a call to articulate her vision's essence, a declaration of her intentions and what she believed success truly was. She took another steadying breath, allowing the air to nourish her resolve. "Success," she began, her voice steady yet tinged with emotion, "is about making a meaningful impact. It's not just about profit or reputation." She paused to gauge his reaction, searching for signs of engagement in his expression. This was not merely about her project. It was a declaration of her identity, her growth, her evolving understanding of what it meant to contribute to the world. "My goal is to create a space where communities can thrive. to reconnect people with nature and challenge the idea that urban life must strip away the ecological beauty around us. Her hands gestured, animatedly painting a picture of her concept, as if she were showing him vibrant colors and structures on blank canvas. The billionaire nodded, a flicker of interest illuminating his gaze. It infused her with a sense of buoyancy. This was the moment she had imagined in countless daydreams, the pivotal intersection of ambition and opportunity. Yet, she sensed the stakes in their conversation rising, the delicate nature of balancing her vision with the pragmatism he expected. What you're proposing is ambitious, but it'll require resources and a clear strategy to ensure sustainability, he interjected, his tone calm but assertive. What specific steps do you envision to achieve this success? In that instant, a wave of self-doubt swept over her. Had she truly grasped every nuance of her plans? Yet there was no time for hesitation. This was her chance to pull from her depths the knowledge and creativity she had meticulously forged through years of learning and observing. She wasn't the timid girl burdened by inexperience anymore. She was an architect of her destiny. I envision a phased rollout, she replied, her voice growing stronger with conviction. Starting with community workshops that educate and engage people, then gradually creating an interactive garden space where locals can connect with the environment, ultimately leading to a holistic eco-center that addresses wider community needs. He raised an eyebrow, intrigued. She was speaking not only of a project but of revitalizing a community through connection, a concept rooted deeply in her own experiences. The brilliance of her contribution shimmered as she developed her ideas, each one building upon the last. There was momentum now, an undeniable force shaping her narrative. Yet, in the back of her mind, a creeping uncertainty pricked her confidence. Was this enough? Would a powerful figure like him recognize the value in her words? Then it struck her. The challenge ahead wasn't just about finding funding, it was about forging a partnership grounded in mutual respect. If he was to support her, he had to see that her vision was worth investing in, not just in monetary terms, but as a shared journey. Your investment would signify your commitment to innovation in ecological sustainability, she added, her eyes locking onto his. This wasn't solely to persuade him. It was to reaffirm for herself that she deserved this opportunity. It's about creating a legacy together, redefining what success can look like. A moment of silence lingered, tantalizingly charged with potential. His gaze narrowed as he considered her proposition, and she sensed the ground shifting beneath them. Eventually, he leaned back, a contemplative smile slowly forming. You have passion, and I like that. But we need to ensure this aligns with my broader goals, ready to discuss the potential numbers and how we can really make this viable. The weight of his words stirred her, igniting a potent mix of excitement and apprehension. This was it. They were moving beyond mere curiosity. They were on the brink of collaboration. But the reality loomed. A partnership meant compromise, a reshaping of her original vision. Sarah felt a surge of determination. She would stand firm. She would protect her dreams while navigating this new terrain. The prospect of this confrontation with the unfamiliar tested her core beliefs about her purpose. In that moment, a pivotal realization dawned. Success was not a destination, but a continuous journey of adaptation and negotiation. The tension between these ideas seeped through her, strengthening her resolve. As the conversation commenced around numbers, strategic planning, and possibilities, she grappled with the notion that navigating this venture might also bring about a transformative change within herself. The meeting progressed, but uncertainty remained. Would she emerge as a collaborator in her own vision, or would she be engulfed by the weight of external expectations? As they exchanged technicalities, Sarah's inner voice echoed. This could either be the beginning of something revolutionary, or a fork towards a compromise too steep to bear. Realizing the impact of her choices, she prepared to advocate for herself fiercely. The moment stood poised to define her journey. Could she hold onto her essence even as she walked into this labyrinth of negotiation? The challenge only intensified, drawing her closer to a singular conclusion. Navigating this partnership was only the beginning of an even greater transformation, one that could either solidify her path or reshape her entirely. But just as the meeting seemed to fall into its rhythm, The billionaire leaned forward, piercing her thoughts with a direct question. What happens if navigating our visions reveals deeper conflicts? Sarah's heart raced again. The stakes were higher than she had anticipated. The true challenge, it seemed, was yet to come. The brief silence following his question felt like a loaded weapon, ready to fire. Sarah's heartbeat quickened, an instinctive response to the challenge he had laid bare. The urgency of the moment demanded clarity, and she realized that she needed to confront a deeper truth. What if their visions did clash? What if her aspirations didn't align with his ambitions? In that fleeting instant, clarity bubbled to the surface. If we uncover conflicts, she responded, her voice steady, then it's essential we address them openly, right from the start. Her posture transformed. She was no longer just a passionate dreamer, but a strategist ready for battle. True collaboration requires honesty. It's about ensuring that while my vision carries forward, we're not stepping on each other's toes. He studied her intensely, as if unraveling her intentions layer by layer. Sarah felt herself both drawn in and scrutinized, a mix of excitement and trepidation flooding her veins. His probing gaze echoed the tension of her thoughts. This was not merely a partnership, but a crucible for her skills and resolve. Interesting approach, but practical challenges arise daily, he said, his tone tight and analytical. Realistically, you may face resistance, and I need assurance that you can adapt. The weight of his words pressed on her. Adaptability had been her mantra throughout her journey, yet doubting herself still echoed in her mind. Adapting felt like surrendering parts of her vision. She had fought too hard to build something meaningful, and at this very moment, she had to confront the core of her ambition. It won't come easy, but I am willing to challenge the status quo and iterate on my ideas based on outcomes, feedback, and market realities, she replied, feeling more grounded with each phrase. What I'm proposing is not fixed. It'll evolve because it has to for the greater good. In those moments, Sarah felt something fundamentally altering within her. Each word she spoke fortified her self-worth and mission. She was not a passive participant anymore. She was an active architect shaping her future. The confrontation wasn't just with him. It was with the doubts that lingered, the insecurities she had long grappled with. If our paths diverge, she continued, her voice gaining momentum, then we find common ground or part ways. But I want every discussion, every decision that we make, to be rooted in aligning our visions constructively. I want to craft something that remains true to my objectives while also ushering in real, tangible success. The billionaire leaned back, considering her words. Sarah sensed a shift in the dynamic, a newfound respect for her directness. He had presented a complex challenge, and she had met it with determination, a technique she had never practiced so consciously until now. His interest didn't wane. Instead, it crystallized into focus. That's a refreshing perspective, he admitted, a glimmer of appreciation slicing through his normally stoic demeanor. Adapting while maintaining a clear vision is a balancing act. But tell me, what safeguards can you put in place to ensure you retain your essence as you scale? That question demanded a deeper reflection. The essence of her vision was intertwined with her identity, and the demand for safeguards ignited a spark of realization she could codify her values, forming a framework. I can establish guiding principles for our decision-making. These principles would ensure every strategic direction is rooted in sustainability and community engagement, allowing for reevaluation as we grow. With every word, the tension shifted into a dialogue of potential collaboration, an alliance forged not through mere monetary exchange, but a partnership nurturing mutual respect. Yet, as the conversation unfurled, remnants of uncertainty still lingered. Could these guiding principles be robust enough to withstand friction? The billion-dollar question, the one that whispered doubt in the back of her mind, was whether the world of business could embrace her values in a realm often driven by bottom lines. They continued discussing the framework of their potential project. Sarah's thoughts raced to the internal journey awaiting her. She had taken steps to redefine who she was in this context, but would she uphold those transformations under pressure? There was still a gap, one that was both thrilling and frightening. She needed to prove her ideals could withstand scrutiny. As the conversation moved forward, She expressed her hopes for a future where compromise didn't mean surrender. But just as she felt she gained traction, he dropped another bombshell. And if we find that the community you wish to engage becomes resistant to your vision, what's next? The question pierced through her newfound clarity like ice through fire, smashing the resolve she had only just begun to forge. Could she really build something impactful if resistance kept creeping in, threatening to derail all her aspirations? Then that's the test of my resilience, she breathed, grappling with the uncertain path that lay ahead. This was only the beginning. The stakes had shifted, evolving from mere aspirations into concrete realities, demanding her utmost character. Navigating this behemoth of collaboration would require more than vision. It would demand her full self, laid bare before the unknown. In that pivotal moment, Sarah felt the overwhelming realization. Embracing the challenge was the first step in her metamorphosis. How she navigated those conflicts could either catapult her forward or redefine the fabric of her ambitions entirely. The true test awaited, and it called for every ounce of her courage. Would she rise to meet it, or would doubt sideline her aspirations before they had a chance to take flight? The days following that pivotal conversation unfolded like a whirlwind, filled with brief moments of exhilaration punctuated by ominous doubts. Sarah found herself grappling with the expansive implications of their partnership, each decision now magnified by the lofty expectations set by her billionaire counterpart. She dove into the intricacies of their proposed framework, spending hours analyzing market data and dissecting industry trends. Each graph and statistic felt like a lifeline tugging her deeper into a professional narrative she had only begun to write. Yet amidst the analytical fervor, the looming question remained: how would she ensure that her principles weren't just theoretical constructs but lived realities in the operation? Late nights in front of her laptop soon transformed into early morning reflections over coffee. The struggles she faced were palpable. With every key press, the resistance she had anticipated seemed to materialize not just from external forces but within herself. Each draft of her guiding principles felt more like an echo of her own fears than a blueprint for success. Who was she to dictate an ethos in an environment that often prioritized profit over people? Over time, her anxiety was met with a flicker of resolve. Perhaps the initial resistance she felt was a necessary friction, a catalyst that could lead to a profound transformation. Those moments of doubt began to serve as an impetus for growth. She started visualizing her principles in practice, how they would redefine not just her mission but the standard for partnerships. One rainy afternoon, driven by a newfound clarity, Sarah drafted a document titled Vision and Values. In it, she articulated what mattered most: integrity, sustainability, and inclusivity. Each word she chose was imbued with purpose, shaped by the reality she envisioned. She penned examples of dilemmas she anticipated facing, outlining how she would approach them through the lens of her principles. The lines between idealism and realism began to blur. This was more than a list; it became a manifesto, a declaration of intent. With the document steady in her hands, she approached him with a mixture of hope and trepidation, ready to reveal her crafted foundation. "I think I've outlined how we can maintain our commitments while navigating the pressures ahead," she said, scanning his expression for any sign of validation. It was crucial to see if he would recognize her effort beyond the metrics. His eyes narrowed, a moment of contemplation washing over him. Slowly, a small smile emerged, fragile yet reassuring. "This is impressive, Sarah. A solid base can guide critical decisions. But how will you galvanize the team around these values?" She paused, the weight of his question lodged deeply within her. The reality was that an ethos was only as effective as its advocates. Engaging others in this mission required a finesse she was still learning to cultivate. Could her enthusiasm transform into a contagious energy that would rally not just allies but skeptics? "I plan to integrate these values into our daily operations." Her voice steadied as she spoke. "Workshops, regular feedback sessions, open forums, it all needs to foster dialogue. If they understand the why behind our actions, it could inspire them to commit." He nodded, appreciating the tactical approach. Yet an undercurrent of doubt nagged at her conscience. It was imperative she didn't just project confidence. She had to embody it, especially when challenged. The stakes were high, The path uncharted, she was no longer treading lightly on her ambitions but fully immersing herself in the tumultuous stream. Yet just as she began to feel the tide shift in her favor, a thought clawed at her mind: what if her ideals weren't enough? What if the very resistance she sought to navigate emerged from her own vulnerabilities? With a resolve sharpened by unease, Sarah concluded, but if my values are met with disbelief, then I must re-examine how to communicate their importance. Leadership demands flexibility, and I can't allow rigidity to undermine our potential. He regarded her with a subtle intensity, the weight of her words sinking in. It was one thing to draw up principles. It was another to live through adversity while sticking to them. Your willingness to reflect is impressive, but the real test will come when faced with real confrontation, he cautioned, finally leaning back in his chair, evaluating her intricacies. Attention filled the air, heavy with possibility. Would she be strong enough to confront her potential failures head-on? Or would she falter when the stakes grew high? The prospect loomed, an eddy in the current threatening to pull her under. Sarah stood at a precipice, the challenge before her more layered than she had initially anticipated. Each day promised a new scenario that could either reinforce or unravel the fabric of her aspirations. As the conversation dwindled, she couldn't shake the question that reverberated within her. Would clarity blossom into a true guiding light in those tumultuous waters, or would it dim under pressure, leaving her vision stranded in shadows? The stakes had transformed into a question of resilience, hers. And knowing that, she felt the urge to confront not just the unknown ahead but the potential within herself. Her commitment to integrity would soon face its first real test. The moment of truth was inching closer, and she could feel its palpable weight bearing down on her. In the days that followed, Sarah adopted an uncanny discipline in her routine. Her mornings began at dawn, the first light breaking through her window serving as a silent promise to take charge of her narrative. Each hour was meticulously crafted around research, brainstorming sessions with her team, and moments of reflection aimed at improving her communication strategies. It was no longer merely about adhering to an ideal, it was transforming that ideal into actionable steps. During one such early morning, as she reviewed feedback from her colleagues on the vision and values document, a sinking realization hit her: their responses were lukewarm at best. Sarah felt her heart race, spurred not just by disappointment but the stark reminder that enthusiasm doesn't always translate into buy-in. There were no nods of understanding or excited conversations around the break room. Instead, there were furrowed brows and hesitant suggestions for tweaking her approach. As she reflected on their reactions, it became increasingly clear to her that she had to confront more than just skepticism. She was contending with the entrenched culture of a company shaped by years of prioritizing profits over people. The thought of rising above this pervasive mindset was both daunting and invigorating. This was her moment to not just lead but to become a catalyst for change, a role she simultaneously craved and feared. What if it was her responsibility to amplify their voices? Instead of merely disseminating her manifesto, she could facilitate conversations that would offer her team the chance to redefine their role within this newfound ethos. Empowering others to express their opinions could render her vision more compelling, weaving their input into the fabric of her principles. Perhaps the solution lay in fostering collaboration instead of dictating doctrine. Determined, Sarah dove headfirst into organizing a series of interactive workshops to educate her colleagues about the philosophy behind their values. She meticulously crafted an engaging presentation combining insightful data, relatable anecdotes, and brainstorming exercises that would actively involve every participant. With trembling hands, she sent invitations to the entire team, subtly reminding them that their insights were not just welcomed. They were necessary. On the day of the first workshop, Sarah's stomach fluttered with a cocktail of excitement and anxiety. She had envisioned a room buzzing with ideas and enthusiasm. What if it turned into an echo chamber of resistance? Her mind raced through methods for encouraging dialogue as her heart thumped in sync with the rhythm of her doubts as her colleagues filtered into the room. She recognized familiar faces marked by skepticism and fatigue. Undeterred, Sarah took a deep breath, gathering her resolve. She opened the session not with a polished presentation but with vulnerability. I'm still navigating this path, a path we all share. Your insights matter more than you might realize. I need your help to breathe life into these values. For the first time, the air felt different. Questions transformed into conversations. Casual resistance started shifting into sharing personal anecdotes of their experiences with ethical dilemmas and teamwork, and the palpable tension began to dissolve. Before long, the workshop morphed into an engaging discussion, brimming with raw honesty and unexpected laughter. In that moment, Sarah realized this was the energy she sought to cultivate. She was not merely a leader of her vision. She was part of a collective journey that demanded a multitude of voices. Each individual contributed to shaping what their partnership could truly embody. However, as she basked in the light of that progress, shadows lurked in the background. One conversation revealed a disquieting truth. Not everyone was on board. A whisper of dissent reached her ears, warnings of a faction within the company resistant to the core changes she championed. It felt reminiscent of the challenges she faced personally, the voices of doubt, the fear of rejection swirling in the backdrop. Determined to face this new challenge, she steeled herself for the confrontations ahead. The question now was not only about maintaining a dialogue but about addressing dissent head-on. As the echoes of the workshop faded, Sarah couldn't ignore the escalating stakes. She might have rallied many, but the undercurrents of resistance hinted at battles yet to come, forcing her to confront the daunting reality: could she galvanize support while addressing the naysayers? And as she crafted a plan for continued outreach, the specter of potential conflict loomed. The time had come to face not only her own limitations but the formidable attitudes that threatened to undermine her transformative mission. Sarah stood at the brink of a new chapter in her life, each dawn unveiling layers of growth that had unfolded from the whirlwind of experiences she faced over the last few months. The community garden project she'd envisioned was rapidly morphing from a mere aspiration into a solid reality. And with this transformation came an overwhelming sense of fulfillment that eclipsed her previous concerns. Through countless hours of hard work, vulnerability, and collaboration, she had carved out an identity not just as a dreamer but as a resilient doer and innovator in her own right. Weeks passed since she had launched the interactive workshops aimed at aligning her team around a shared mission. The feedback was overwhelmingly encouraging, instilling a renewed energy into the office atmosphere. Colleagues who once wore expressions tinged with cynicism now approached her with not only ideas but also initiatives aimed at actualizing the core principles she had painstakingly documented. Inextricably linked to this surge of support was Sarah's resolve to confront adversaries lurking within the shadows of her aspirations. A small faction remained resistant, voices that cast doubt on the very sustainability of her vision. Acknowledging that constructive conflict could yield innovation, Sarah proactively arranged a meeting with those who were skeptical, determined to understand their reservations. This initiative would not only test their relationship but also reaffirm her commitment to transparency and collaboration. The day of the meeting arrived, pulsating with an anxious energy that resonated deeply within her. Moving through the hallways, she reminded herself of the journey she had undertaken not only in fostering the garden project, but also in cultivating her ability to confront dissent with clarity and grace. As she entered the conference room, she felt the weight of her growth balanced on the precipice of this moment. "Thank you for coming, everyone. Your concerns are crucial to our process," Sarah began, her voice steady, lending authority to her authenticity. She sought to cultivate a dialogue that prioritized understanding and collaboration rather than resistance. As discussions unfolded, the skeptics raised their points: financial sustainability, skepticism of community engagement, and fears about turning this project into a fleeting endeavor. Yet rather than feeling cornered, Sarah felt emboldened. She navigated each concern with the confidence born from her journey, weaving in data and anecdotes gathered during her workshops to illustrate the tangible support her project had garnered. What if the garden not only sustains itself but thrives through community engagement and local partnerships? She proposed, folding her narrative into the fabric of a shared vision. An energy shifted in the room. She sensed walls of doubt beginning to crack. By the time the meeting concluded, Sarah had transformed lingering apprehensions into constructive pathways. Resistance had evolved into collaboration. Of the skeptics, one even suggested turning their proposed funding strategies into campaigns that connected local businesses with the project, a tangible suggestion that spoke to her vision reverberating beyond her own conception. As days turned into weeks, The fruits of her labor began to sprout not just in imagination but in reality. Sarah and the team had successfully secured local sponsorships, and community members began rolling up their sleeves, participating in volunteer days that turned out to be rich in both connections and laughter. The garden blossomed. Mirroring her journey, it was becoming a sanctuary for growth, learning, and renewed community vitality. In a poignant moment on the garden's official opening day, Sarah stood amidst vibrant blooms and proud faces. The sun streamed down, illuminating the beauty of what they had collectively achieved. With heartfelt announcements echoing through the air, she was honored to present her vision to the City Council, who recognized the project as a model for sustainable community engagement. Her name was soon mentioned in the local news, showcasing her accomplishments. But beyond accolades and recognition, Sarah's greatest triumph emerged within. The confident, assured woman now stood in stark contrast to the young girl defined by her limitations. She learned to assert herself, embrace collaboration while holding onto her vision, and navigate complexities with unwavering integrity. This moment was not merely an end, it was an epilogue of one chapter, as she stepped into new roles, invincible and empowered. This was her moment. After years spent buried in self-doubt, Sarah had sculpted not just a community garden but a resilient identity. She had achieved what she once thought impossible, and that was worthy of celebration. With a smile as bright as the sun above her, she savored the sweet taste of accomplishment, confidence radiating from her very core as she stood basking in the glory of personal achievement. A final thought echoed in her mind. The seeds of transformation she had planted within herself had germinated into a bountiful harvest, one that promised growth far beyond the garden. Now more than ever, Sarah felt alive, a creator, a leader, and a perpetual learner tethered to her ambitions, navigating the complex landscape she had dared to cultivate. This is your call to action. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive emotional stories that illuminate the journey of overcoming obstacles. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and ensure these narratives reach those who truly need inspiration. Comment below with your reactions and theories about Sarah's growth, and share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who deserve to see this powerful conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share.